Hi, in today's episode, we are going to build database migrations, and we're going to construct a user table inside of a user schema. And for that, we obviously need a database. We need to set up a database locally, and therefore we are going to use Docker Compose for the local development server. And yeah, stay tuned. Let's get the Postgres container up and running. And for that, I'm going to create a, by the way, this is a data grip IDE that I use. It's from products of IntelliJ. So I can highly recommend because it has a really nice developer experience when it comes to working with databases. So we're gonna attach Docker Compose YAML file where we going to define services, and here as a first service we're going to have db. Image is going to be Postgres 14 Alpine. It is going to restart whenever it fails or crashes. Let's also define env file, which is going to be env compose, and there we are going to have all the secrets for the database. Next, we are going to map host machine port with the container port. So host machine port should be accessible on 5432 from the container port 5432 again, and this way we are going to access the Postgres outside the container as well. I don't want to dive too deep into the Docker and the Compose because we need to finish up the app, and if I really dive into the concepts in deeply, we won't make it this year, I think. And lastly, we want to basically work with the persistent data so that the data we create locally or inside of the container won't get lost whenever we shut down the container, and it is going to be it's going to stay persistent basically. So for that we need to also map the volumes between the host machine and the container again, and this particular path that I write is also this basically path points to the Postgres storage inside of the container, and I'm mapping it with our local volume. And this db local volume we also want to create because it does not exist right now. And let's say it is exactly the name of db we already mentioned, and we want to specify the driver, which is local. So this means that the data is going to, or the volume db is going to store the data on the local machine. Sorry, I forgot to remove this here because it doesn't take a list. So alright, I think now it should be fine, and if we run docker compose up -- build, dash build option basically means that it is going to build the image. We need to create the env compose file, right? And we need basic configuration for it as well. I just copy pasted the base configuration for our environment variables. And by the way, the names here for the Postgres config, they has to be the same because this is how the documentation is written, or this is how the environment variables are set inside of the container. So this needs to be the exact same thing or name. if we rerun it again, let's see if it works. Okay, seems to be working, and the user ready for startup, blah blah blah. Database system is ready to accept connections. And now at this point we want to data grip add a data source inside of it, which is Postgres. And in here we are going to make a connection basically. So authentication will be user password. User is Postgres. Password is also Postgres because this is how we defined it in our env compose file. Port is correct. That's cool. Everything is fine. If we test connection, it succeeded. So let's apply this. Then say OK. Let's select all the schemas here. Database dev. This schema I already created, by the way. Or this is not a schema but the database. And inside of this database, we are going to import all the schemas. All right, now we set up our Postgres, local Postgres with Docker Compose. Now it's running, which is cool. And now we want to create a user schema inside of the Facebook dev database. For that, we are going to use dbmate. So this is the tool that we are going to use for database migrations. And yeah, so it is basically a migration tool that will keep your database schema in sync across multiple developers and your production servers. That means you are going to it will basically going to track the version control, what files you have migrated already, and what files you have, for example, rollbacked, and you will going to see all the statuses, and it will keep nice and organized. So this is alternative to ORM systems, object relational mappers or mapping, I don't know, I'm not sure. And this is basically with this data dbmate tool you can write raw SQL statements and really be flexible with your SQL code. And this is the reason why I'm using it, because I like also writing SQL code. And but you can also use something else like, I don't know, Sequelize for Node.js projects. There is the Sequelize ORM tool, which is also pretty nice. And for TypeScript Node.js, ORM for Oracle Postgres, you can use it as well. And this basically creates, you can create inside of the code like user tables and all the other stuff. Like it is also not bad, but I like to use raw SQL statements. So I already installed dbmate, and for that I'm going to use to create a new migration file. I'm going to use dbmate new command and name this migration user, or user init maybe. And now it created a folder which is called db. Inside of it that we have a migration folder, and it created as you can see, the migration file. And in here you have two comments. One is migrate up and one is migrate down. Migrate up code, we're going to execute it. We're going to be executed whenever you basically execute dbmate up file, up command. And the migrate down code, so underneath migrate down comment here, this code that we will gonna write, we're going to execute whenever you write rollback. Okay, so For now, let's create a user schema. And by the way, usually you don't have to write the quotes here, because the user is already a reserved word in Postgres. We can't use it without the quotes, so you need to write the quotes here. Let's change the dialect to, no, let's change the SQL to PostgreSQL, and now it's not complaining anymore. So we want to create the schema. We want to create a table which is which will be inside of the schema user, and this will be called base table inside of the user schema. In here we are going to have an ID attribute that basically is an UID, type of UID. We are going to have it is going to be primary key, and by default, if it doesn't have a value, it is going to generate a new ID for us. And this UID generate version 4 comes from an extension that we have to also create. And this extension is called UID OSSP. This is going to be created if it's not exists already, and we are going to take advantage of it. As a next, we want to create email attribute, password, last name, first name and last name. Email is a unique field, can't be null. In fact, none of these fields can be null, so they have to have a value. By the way, password is unique as well. And yeah, that's basically yeah. We need also additional information such as birth date, which is a type of date. Null, not null. Gender is gender, a type of gender. We don't have, we didn't create this type yet, but I will create it in a sec. Created on, which is a timestamp, and last login. We want to also keep track of it. And genders, we are going to have yeah, this type here created, which is called gender. It is an enum with two values, yeah, male and female. Let's keep the gender simple in this tutorial. I know there are many genders out there, so yeah, let's keep it simple for this tutorial, I would say. And what we want to do is we want to also, whenever we want to roll back this migration, we want to write this code here for dropping or for migrating it down. And for that, we are writing this code here for dropping the table, dropping the schema, dropping the extension if it exists, and dropping the type as well. So this is the migration down code, which will be executed whenever we write dbmate rollback, basically. And let's also say that all the created on field default value will be null. So whenever it does not have a value, doesn't provide value for it, it is going to take the value of the function now, which returns the current date. It's a Postgres built-in function. I think now we're good to go, and we can basically say dbmate up. First, we can see the status. What the status is. Oh yes, we need a database URL, which we're going to create in .env file, and it's going to be Postgres, and I have the URL here. Protocol will be Postgres. That's the username, password, the host, port, and database name. And SSL mode for now disabled because we are just developing it locally. And dbmate actually reads the .env file variables by default, which is very nice. And yeah, let's now say what's the status. And it says applied 0 migrations and pending 1. So we have 1 migration which we didn't apply, and as you can see, it's detected it correctly. And if we then now run dbmate up, it is applying, writing the .db, so like it's db schema SQL, and now it applied the schema. It generated me this schema.sql where we have all the generated basically migrations from the migrations folder here. And yeah, as you can see, we're creating the type. Does some other stuff. It sets default table space, is creating a migration schema or migration table, which dbmate there keeps track of the versions of our migration. So what's like the last version, and this is the table, and so on and so forth. And if we now basically refresh our database, you see the user schema that we created, and inside of this we have one table which is called base, and this has 9 columns, which is ID, email, password, and so on. Those are the columns that we created. If we double click this, we don't have any entries, and yeah, this is basically it. Our database migration is successfully, we run it successfully. And as a next tutorial, in the next tutorial, I will go into basically connect database with our backend and try out stuff, try out authentication, if it works or not, write some users, register some users as well. And yeah, stay tuned and see you next time.